What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassity. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right, welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out listeners. It's about where you come from, what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Hey, folks, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like this thing out, like it up, share it out. It helps the show. It really actually does help the show, and I appreciate that. So who are we talking to today? Well, I want to get a big shout out to Matt Boyer, who connected Owen Hanson and me. And so I'm interviewing the California kid, and I have been so looking forward to this interview because it's an incredible story. Anybody who likes comeback stories, anybody who likes second chance stuff, anybody who likes creativity, entrepreneurship, this is it. This is it. And I'm going to give you a little bit from Owen Hanson's book, the summary, because I think I've been looking at all this stuff, and I thought this was just a great encapsulation of what his story, what we're going to get into. It says the surfer kid from California, Owen Hanson, was still in his 20s when he found himself the leader of a multi-million-dollar criminal empire. What began as an attempt to fit in with the rich kids at the University of Southern California soon grew into gambling and loan sharking, which then opened the door to drug trafficking and money laundering. Hanson wasn't just involved in this stuff, he excelled at it. Living the fast-paced lifestyle of the rich and famous, Hanson was finally gaining the respect he craved. But with the cartel, a serious drug abuse problem, and the pursuit of the FBI all threatening to overtake him, it wouldn't be long before his glamorous lifestyle caught up with him. Wow. Well, I can't wait to jump into all this and unpack it. Before we do, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct. You know, who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots looking for a car? Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. Negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. The new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Owen Hanson, welcome in, my man. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Brett? Thanks for having me.
Well, you've got such an incredible story, and I have been all over your YouTube and everything else that you got going on. It's fascinating to me. You are currently in the halfway house. You've got about 30 days. Well, you got less than 30 days now. I think it's June 26th. But in the process of all that, you have, when you talk about going to prison, you know, this goes into 1,100 prisons. So everybody's in prison thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do when I get out? What's life going to be like when I get out? And you created a protein ice cream that's now California Ice Protein that's getting ready to launch all over the place. And you did it right there in prison. You've got a video of it. People go to YouTube, check out Owen Hanson and look at this thing because it's all the cool. And then it morphs into all the cool stuff that he's got with all the marketing, the point of sale stuff that it's all being done right now. But, you know, I was thinking let's go back. Let's go back before all this took place, you know, because you were saying, Owen, and it's all throughout, you know, your storyline, you were just trying to fit in. It's trying to fit in, trying to be that guy that fit in with the rich kids and stuff. Take us back. What was your life like as a kid growing up? Mom, dad, siblings?
Brett, I was just a surfer kid from Redondo Beach, man. I played beach volleyball. My dad was a construction worker. And I grew up, you know, as a junior lifeguard, surfing in in the South Bay, and playing volleyball and trying to be that next St. John Smith or Karch Karai. And I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed life back then as a kid, living that just easy life. And then I remember getting recruited to USC, and I took that scholarship offer, and I finally arrived on campus, and I just couldn't believe all the wealth that was around me. Something I've never seen as a son of a construction worker.
Well, I can't either. Because there is a tremendous amount of wealth. I know people who have gone there. Their kids have gone there. But you were rolling in as kind of the cool kid, though. I mean, you're a surfer dude from California. You get into one of the best fraternities. What are you thinking? This is like imposter syndrome, or do you start kind of fitting yourself in?
No, I just thought, I'm going to USC to make the connections. I'm going there obviously to play sports, and I'm going to make the best out of it. And I was really excited. I'm not going to lie. I was so excited, but by the time I started to see everyone around me, with their daddy's American Express Black Card and their BMWs and Mercedes, I was like, man, I do not belong here. It's just that life of trying to fit in, basically. And eventually I made the football team, won a couple of national championships, and now I'm around all these famous football players, and they're going to the NFL. And long story short, you're just trying to fit in. Now you're around your fraternity brothers that are millionaires, and you're around your teammates that are all going to the NFL. So it's like, where am I going to fit into this equation?
So what happens next?
So what happens is I get that great job working a 9-to-5 for a USC alumni, making six figures my first couple of years out, and then the recession hits. And I remember I was so bummed out. I went to USC to make those connections, and now all of a sudden I'm out of a job. And so I had to go back, and I'd tell my dad, listen, man, I lost my job. What do I do? And, eventually I went to my father and begged him to meet his Italian friend that was a bookmaker. And my dad didn't want to make that introduction, but I handled it. And from there, we blew this thing out of the water. I became the biggest bookmaker in the United States at one point, taking bets from A-list celebrities, professional athletes. It was a hell of a life, and eventually I started taking bets from the cartel.
But you didn't really know that you were taking bets from the cartel. The way I understand it, it was one of those weird things, Owen, where you just kind of fell into it. The guy's betting a lot of money. He's losing. One day he gets a big hit, and you want to make sure that you pay him, because that's what the good bookies do. They pay on Monday. And he makes a connection with you like, hey, I'd like to do and know more about you and see if you might be interested. Is that kind of how it happened?
Yeah, he couldn't believe I paid him on a Monday, and he was so impressed the way I ran my business. He wanted to do business with me. It's funny how that works.
It is.
And as an ambitious kid, Brent, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to do anything I could to please these VIP customers.
Yeah,
and that's what I did. I became his concierge for handling his logistics of his money in the United States, and next thing you know, that thing snowballed, and I'm trafficking tons of cocaine into Australia for him.
I was listening to this story on another deal, and it's kind of crazy because you always wonder, like, how does somebody get into this? And you were good. The fascinating thing is, you were always good with numbers. You were always, from early on, you could figure out numbers, which makes a lot of sense on why the sports bookie thing worked. But I'm just wondering, like, somebody tells you, hey, go pick up, I think, or was it to deliver like $1 million? Did that freak you out? Because like in the movies, if you get set up in something like that. You don't know very much about it. I mean, the first thought on my mind is I'm going to get my head blown off. I'm going to get taken. I'm going to take it. What goes through your mind, Owen, when somebody says, "Hey, I'd like for you to go deliver $1 million over here and wherever"?
Yeah, you got to remember, I was 24 years old, and I was ambitious, and I had some big balls, Brent, some big ones. And I said, the guy was paying me 10%. So if I'm picking up $1 million for him and he's paying me 10%, I'm making $100,000 in a day. Who can say they made $100,000 in a day at 24 years old?
It's a lot.
And you got to remember, I kept thinking about my father working that 9 to 5, sitting on the 405 every day of his life, and barely having enough to pay the mortgage. So I just said, you know what, that's not the life for me, and I'm ambitious, and I'm gonna become an entrepreneur, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get to the top.
And then you get in with him. He likes what you're doing, and then he just throws out, "Hey, do you know anybody in Australia?"
Pretty much, yeah. He did some research on me, and he realized that I was so well connected in the U.S. He figured, let's utilize this guy over down under, and sure enough, that's what I did, and I figured out a way to get over there and figured out a way to do what he asked.
Which is crazy because, I mean, you just happen to have, I think, an aunt or somebody that was in and down under Australia, which is kind of crazy because it's around the world. And this thing all takes off. You've got pounds of money that you've got. You don't know really how to get rid of it because, I mean, you've got millions of dollars. I'm thinking about this thing like all of a sudden you're in a different country, different continent, and you've got this apartment and you've got probably, I don't know how much that stuff weighs. What is it, like 50, 70 pounds of money, and you got to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, I actually had about 10 million in cash.
It's a lot. It's a lot of cash, Owen.
Yeah, and I had to start cleaning it for the guy, and that was why he sent me over there. He wanted me to move this money like I moved the money for him in the U.S. And, I never make excuses, Brent. I always figure out a way in life. I don't care if my back's against the wall. I will always figure out a way. That's my go-to. Like everyone says, man, you always figure out a way. You're the most resilient guy we've ever met. So I figured out a way, and I started laundering this money, and eventually I started laundering it through the casinos. And unfortunately, the guy that was laundering it through the casinos ended up losing $2.5 million of the cartel's money.
Which was a bad day. I mean,
it was a bad day.
He calls you and says, "Hey, I'm down to $300,000. Can you bring me some more cash?" And you're like, "Holy shit. Holy shit."
Yeah, he then called the cops the same day because he was so stressed out, and he reported that we had a weapon on us. One of my runners got caught with a bag of $700,000. There was no weapon. We weren't violent, but he caught him with $700,000. So that same day, in 24 hours, I lost $3.2 million of the cartel's money.
So now what happens, Owen, when that happens?
Man, you gotta face the music, right? You got to do the right thing, because growing up with my father, he taught me one thing: you always pay back your debts. And I had morals and ethics, and I went to Mexico and met this boss from Mexico, and I told him, "Listen, I lost your money, and I'm responsible." I told him it wasn't me, but I put my face on the line here, and I'm going to pay you back. And he says, "You told me, don't worry, you don't owe me $3.2 million. You owe me $4 million now, and you work for the cartel." And that's when I knew my life was over, Brad. I just said, you know what? At least I'm alive. I said, I got that going for me. And you know what? I'm going to do the right thing, because that's what you're supposed to do in life.
Did you think, Owen, because thinking about this story, losing that money, you see these movies with the mafia, the cartel. Did you think when you were going down there to meet with the boss that might just be it, that you were done? They just took you to the river, and there goes Owen, he's gone.
Yeah, there was that part, but there was also that part saying, you know what, if I hide here in the U.S., he's going to find me, and I'm going to be looking over my shoulder. And right. I told myself, I remember driving my car down to the Tijuana border. I told myself, you know what, I'm going to face the music. So at least if he's going to kill me, he's going to do it right in front of my face, right? And then I don't have to worry about looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life.
It's a lot to think about. How old would you have been when you had that meeting?
I think I was about 26 years old at that time.
Wow. Okay, so he says you're part of us now. How does life change for you going forward?
Well, I'm now quarterbacking and working for the most infamous cartel in the world at the time, and I'm just figuring it out, right? Like I got to figure out a way to get this product now into Australia. I'm using every contact I have, every kind of route I have. I'm getting creative. I'm still running the sports book business because we got to look like I'm doing something legit and not working as a kingpin in Australia. So business as usual, man. I just kept grinding, working my construction job sites, developing homes, running the sports book, and moonlighting this Australia trip.
So it works. I mean, you've got all kinds of various things you're doing. You're using wine bottles, which I'd never even seen anything like that before. I mean, how in the hell did you think of that to put and take what was $150 a bottle, wine bottle, and that's how you ended up taking that cocaine and sending it across the world? I mean, where the hell did that come from? I was ingenious, but like what happened?
It happened one day when I met my mate in Australia, and we were in this island in Fiji, and I said, mate, we got to figure out a way to get it in, and I said, I'm responsible. And I remember we poured each other some white wine, and I looked up and I was like, that's it, wine. I said, I'm gonna break the wine down and turn it into liquid form. I'm gonna break the cocaine down into liquid form. And he says, if you can pull that off, I'll be able to get a chemist in Australia to turn it back into powder form. So that's what I did with it.
Unbelievable. The other place that you had that I thought was brilliant was you've got chocolate delivery trucks in New Jersey, and they just become a distributor for you where all the places you needed to go, and he gets a cut off the deal. But how did you get connected to the chocolate guy?
Man, USC connections, baby. You got to use this. He was a SAE actually at USC the same time I was, and he was involved in the logistics business. His family had a chocolate company from the UK.
Yeah.
So I offered him $50,000 cash, and I said, listen, I got an offer you can't refuse. I'm going to give you $50,000 cash every month. All I need is your expired chocolate. Who says no to $50,000 cash?
Made him an offer he couldn't refuse. So I thought the next step of this thing was also interesting. You thought, why don't I use a sailboat? Why don't I use a catamaran? A guy owes me money. How does that all work out?
Listen, I take any kind of payment I can. And the guy owed me some money on the sports book, and he didn't have cash, so I took his catamaran. I transferred it over, and then I started using that catamaran to basically transport the cocaine from Mexico into the U.S. waters, into Newport Beach. And it saved me on my prices. I got the prices down because the transportation just from Tijuana across the border is $3,000 a kilo. So when you're bringing between 80 to 100 kilos, you're saving 240. Let's see, 3 times 80, 240 to.
Oh, and Owen, your whole thing was I'm thinking I got to pay back. If I can squeeze the margins.
Yeah. I'm using every nickel and dime I can save, and it's going towards my tab.
And this captain, he thinks that you're smuggling in an illegal, and yeah. So you actually do smuggle. You do the smuggling illegal, but just one.
One time, I just did it. I just did it so he didn't have to worry about the big load that was underneath.
Right.
And I brought that illegal, and he thought he was just transporting an illegal, but little did he know I had 80 bricks in the bottom of the boat.
And is this the same guy that also learned how to fly and pilot, or is that a different guy?
Yeah, no, it's the same guy. I got a pilot license, started learning to fly a Cessna that I was purchasing, and we're going to start transporting it through the air.
And that worked.
Yeah, of course it worked. Everything I did worked.
All right. So this is all going on. You're living the life. You're making money. You're paying back El Jefe. And when's the nightmare start?
The nightmare started the day that guy lost the money. He got so scared that he lost the money, he went to the feds, and he made a deal with them and was granted immunity to tell him what he did for me and how he was part of this money laundering scheme. And then he started working for him. In the next 4 years, they were surveillancing me throughout, my journey, paying back El Jefe, running my sports book. And it was just a matter of time, Brent. I knew they were there. I watched them in the rear view windows. I saw them in the Verizon vans in front of the house. I just kept saying to myself, I got to pay these guys in Mexico back.
That was your biggest priority. That was,
yeah, I didn't care about
hopefully you had, like the clock was ticking. Can I make enough money to pay these guys back? I don't know what's going to happen to me over here, but these feds are after me. Can I squeeze dollars to get these guys paid?
Exactly.
So when does it all come down? You've been surveilled for 4 years, which it's a crazy way to live. Because, I went through a 6-year investigation with the feds. It wasn't secret. It was all out in the open, but it was 6 years. But knowing that they're on you, I guess the best question is, how did you live your life with that?
A lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, just to get my mind off of it, right? You're just trying to, the anxiety's through the roof, so you're just doing anything and everything. I'd be golfing with Matt Boyer, and I'd be popping Xanax and Vicodin and drinking margaritas at 6:30 in the morning. It was a terrible way to live, and it was just unbearable for me to know that I had both the cartel and the FBI breathing down my neck.
That's two big, heavy weights. I mean, the federal government, the United States of America, breathing down your neck is a weight that no one knows what it feels like. But to have the cartel on that together with the two of them, I can't imagine. So when does the takedown happen for you?
I went to go handle a transaction with these guys I was dealing with in the money wiring business, and I go to the golf course, and it ended up being the money laundering guys were actually the feds. So they set up a sting where there's 15 undercover FBI agents at the golf course and a helicopter in the sky, and Australia authorities were there to arrest me, and that was the day. It was finally over, man. It was the best, to be honest, the biggest relief of my life.
You were relieved because it had all happened. And
yeah, I was relieved because A, I paid back the cartel, and B, now I could walk away from the game, not ever worrying about, owing someone, not ever worrying about having to go back and work for them, and just finally say sayonara to this illegal activity that I got involved in.
In the midst of this, too, is the feds want information from you, which, there's two ways to go on that. There's always a fork in the road. You got very creative on how you talk to them. And I thought, one of the guys you talked about he had died previously. The other guy, it was crazy how you were able to tell on yourself and keep, and as we know, when you're talking to the feds, they can charge you with a whole nother charge because that's how Martha Stewart went to prison. They said that she lied to the FBI agents, but you were able to figure out, and you were also in custody, if I'm not mistaken, Owen, like for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, I didn't get bail. I was in custody for 2.5 years fighting this thing. And like you said, Brad, the government already knows everything before you.
Everything. Before they ever talk to you, they've done everything they need to know. Now you set you down.
They have the best lawyers in the world work on these cases, and FBI agents every one of them has, a law degree most likely. So these guys are no dummies. They know everything about you. They know who you've been working with. So I just told them straight out, I cannot talk about the cartel. be signing death certificates for my family. I said I could not talk about the people I was doing business with in Italy. That's another death certificate. I said, but I'll tell you what I'll tell you. And I started listing these people that I was working with, and like I said in that big hurricane interview you're referring to, it was a game of chess. I wasn't lying. I was telling the truth. But at the same time, I had to protect myself where I wasn't putting my family's livelihood at risk.
Well, the other thing I thought was gutsy is that the cartel was coming in and saying, "Hey, tell them about this guy. Tell them about this guy. Tell them about this guy." And those were the rival families, and that would have been easy to do, but you didn't know anything about those guys. And
yeah.
Then they're going to ask you, like, well, where did you meet him? What was your hookup? How did you do this? You wouldn't have been able to fill that out.
Yeah, and you'd be lying. And if you get and you know the rules, if you're found lying, then guess what? Everything's wiped off the table.
Right.
So you just tell the cartel lawyers that are coming and bringing you this information, listen, it's not worth it because I don't know anything about these guys, A, and B, if they start asking me questions, I'm going to look like a fool because then I'm going to lie, and then that's going to take away from anything I have in the future.
And the other guys had already been taken down that you were with in Australia, so that you were really trying just to get yourself in a position to where, and I'm assuming at that time that and I'm trying to remember the story, you had a good attorney. I think you had a bad attorney, and then you got a really good attorney.
Correct. I had a bad one. I fired him, and then I hired the attorney for the Arellano Felix cartel, and he was awesome. He went in there, and he says, Owen, you just be honest. He says, if they catch you lying, you might as well throw your plea deal out the window.
Which would catch your attention.
Yeah, they know.
So you get him, you get the conversations with the FBI. When does it come down, Owen, that you're talking about time?
It's you're looking at a 30-year sentence. The mandatory minimum is 10, and with all these racketeering charges and money laundering and this kingpin role they wanted to give me, they say this is the offer, 30 years. And then my lawyer says, well, let's talk about this crooked lawyer you had in Australia. And maybe that crooked lawyer, you never know, years down the road could benefit you. And I didn't think of anything, but I remember this crooked lawyer is the one that got me indicted. I had wiretaps with him and I talking about telling lies to the government. And this is all legal advice that my attorney's giving me in Australia. And I'm taking his advice because he's a professional at what he does, and he's supposed to protect people like myself from going to prison. And as soon as they told me I could talk about him, I was like, whoa, yeah, let's run this. This is the guy that told me to tell lies and try to take millions of dollars of my money. And I had no problem telling on this person that represents the court. And I remember I had these guys fly over from Australia to learn about this crooked attorney, and didn't do me any good. I got sentenced to 21 years, Brent, and I was devastated. And I remember that next day my attorney saw me and he's like, hey man, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. He says, but you never know what can happen. And it clicked in my head like what do you know that I don't know?
Right.
He goes,
right.
You never know. And for the next 5 years I'm in prison wondering, like, what does he mean by that? Is there someone upstairs that's going to come and help me? And man, my luck finally came. In 2020, I got that knock on the door in United States Penitentiary of Lompoc, and I got extradited to Australia. And I got to take the stand against the crooked lawyer that got me indicted, and I told him the truth. I said, this man told me to go and lie and tell this story, and it was all made up. He told me to go talk to the authorities when I told him I didn't want to. And he knew this was illegal money. He took money from my apartment where I had illegal money, and he made me wire him money because he wanted more money out of me, and this guy's he's a crook, and the government in Australia was able to prove that he was He was representing me, ineffective counsel, we call it here in the U.S. And that was my saving grace, man.
Well, I mean that, and the other thing that's crazy about that is, Owen, is traveling as a prisoner, as a federal prisoner, is always weird. But you traveled all the way to Australia. I had a civil trial to go to, and I was at Leavenworth and went to St. Louis. And the weird thing about traveling, I don't know if this will sound incredibly weird to people who haven't done it, but you don't know anything. They don't tell you anything.
You don't tell you anything.
All I got was a phone call, or not a phone call, speaker, Cassity, and to come to the bubble. And then for the next 6 hours, I sat in the hole and waiting to see what was going to happen next. And then I get taken in a van, shackled, to not knowing exactly where I'm going, but I think I'm going to court. But
yeah,
for you, Owen, and I wanted to go back to on what you were saying about federal charges, because it's the weirdest way that you could go into the world on trying to negotiate a plea agreement. Because one of the things they do on federal charges is, like in my white collar case, I was in a federal conspiracy, family business, national company, insurance. And so they take a charge, like you got a business that's been in business for 30 years. Okay, so anything you put in the mail, that's mail fraud. Anything that you wired is wire fraud. Anything that you bought now that your business is a criminal enterprise is money laundering. So you can say one of those is 20 years, but you can stack those and it's 900 years. And that's what a lot of like I was looking at 938 years because of the way that they just took and stacked them all. And then they say, you want to go to trial.
Yeah. It's a scare tactic and it works.
It works really well. So I want to take a break here because I want to go into what your mindset was going in for a 21-year sentence into a federal prison, which I think was a medium, but I'm not positive about that. But before I do, I want to, a lot of people don't like how they show up online. Many individuals think there's no hope when it comes to managing your reputation on Google. Well, there is hope. It's called the Discoverability Company that can help you. Whether you're building a reputation from scratch, preparing your search results after a negative news story, Discoverability can also help you how you're portrayed on popular AI services like ChatGPT. To learn more, visit discoverability.co. They're even launching a do-it-yourself SEO option, a course for individuals who want to take on their search results on their own budget and speed. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off the DIY SEO course with coupon code Nightmare Success. And Nightmare Success Podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group, the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I can tell you this is a bunch of people who help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to prisonist.org, prisonist.org. So, Owen, you finally get everything negotiated out. The whole thing's been a nightmare. You've been in jail, I think, for 2 years, which
2.5.
2.5 years. And as we all know who've been in both, jail's the worst place to be in the world. And then you go to prison. How does that all go down? How do you get transferred? What's your mindset knowing that you've got a 21-year sentence walking into a federal prison?
My mindset was, we're going to play this game in quarters, just like a basketball game.
I like that. How you broke up your time. Yeah.
I broke it up in 5 years at a time. And I said, my first quarter was finally over and I got flown to Australia. And I got that love when I got back, but I got stuck during COVID. So I'm in the second quarter and I'm dying, man. I'm just begging my attorney, like, come on, you got to get a hold of these guys. What's going on? And no one's making any movements in the court. As you remember, the system was down for 2 years. We were locked down in our cells for 23 and a half hours a day. We got out twice a week to shower for a half an hour. And my mind was losing it, man. I said, you know what? I finally have to start pulling out the pen and paper. And that's when I wrote my book, The California Kid. And then I was so bored. I said, you know what, I'm going back to college. And I went back and got my master's degree. And I did a correspondence with a college out of Santa Ana, California, which is called California Coast University.
Okay.
And I ended up getting my master's degree. It took about 4 years, just due to the fact I had to write my essays and send them out. They had to get graded and come back. It was just a nightmare, but it kept my mind sane. And then finally, when we got released from COVID, it was like 2022. We finally got some news in the court that they were going to respond by 2023, most likely. And that's when I just kept praying every day. You just said, come on, man, I did everything I was supposed to do. Like, is there any chance I'm going to get some love? And that's when you just realize, there is your higher power. If you believe in the Lord like myself, you just realize like everything in this world happens for a reason. And, the Lord was telling me, you know what, you need to clean up what you're doing in life. You need to sober up, and I'm going to put you in timeout. And, obviously he didn't think 21 years was right. And he looked down on me, and the judge granted a 8.5-year sentence reduction, got me down to 12.5 years. Under the First Step Act and good behavior, I earned another 3-4 years off with 20 months halfway house. And I knew there was like, okay, there's hope. And then while I was incarcerated in Colorado, I said, you know what, I just finished my master's degree. I need to do something that I can tell about this journey. And that's when I started this protein ice cream company. And I started it in my 6x8 prison cell. And
there's a video of that.
Yeah, there's many videos. And I told my cellie, I said, I don't care what you have to do. I said, but somehow get us the phone. I said, I'll give you an ice cream every week until I leave this prison if you can film me making this stuff. I said, this is content that's priceless. And he's like, you're crazy. He ended up paying a guard, I believe, $5,000 for a phone. And I remember him making this content of me. I was so nervous. I was like, man, just film me making it in the mop bucket. I'm going to make it every week and just do some more filming so we can piece this thing together. And we'll put it on a Google Drive and get it out of this.
Well, the other thing about this is that, first of all, you ran across this thing. You put the ice, rock ice stuff on the top of it.
Rock
salt. I called it rock ice. Rock salt. And you went down, and it had, because you were kind of making were you making a protein shake originally?
Yeah, originally it was just protein shakes, and they were getting cold, but that's about it. And then my cellie told me, if you want to make it colder, you just put some rock salt on it. And then I came back from my workout, and the thing was frozen. I was like, wait a minute here. This is no good. He goes, no, just try it, man. And I took a spoon to it, and it was like protein ice cream. I said, this is insane.
Well, it was, and it tasted good. And then the thing that I thought was fantastic, because there's such a thing as being prison rich and prison with stamps. And, some people are charging, 5 stamps for chicken patties or 2 stamps for a soda. You decide that you're going to, you first let your workout partners try it out to make sure that everybody says it's cool and it's good. And you said, I'm thinking $15. I'm thinking $15 on this. And they said, yeah, that'll work. And you start on, you start taking these pre-orders and taking $15 in prison is a lot, because I think at our prison, I think the prison jobs went from like $4 and then $96, like if you worked at the food warehouse or something. But
yeah, and you were
making like $200 some odd a week.
Yeah, I remember one Super Bowl week, I made more money than the guards that week. And that was my claim to fame. I said, man, I'm making more money than the guards this week. I sold like 50 ice cream.
Well, the other thing that was good about it is you were using the stuff that you could buy from the commissary. So even if you get hit, obviously the mop bucket's not supposed to be used and that kind of stuff, but it's generally accepted unless you get caught. And then it depends on if the person wants to make anything out of it. But, the peanut butter, you probably had to get some extra bananas from the kitchen, but all that generally was stuff that you were getting from the commissary, which I do know that you got hit, and they took all your stamps and took it all, and it was quite a hit, but you went back and figured it out.
Yeah, it's part of doing business. Just kind of like that. I lost that 3.2 million. You figure out a way to get it back, and you keep going. No excuses.
Okay, so you think you've got this is what I wanted to get into, Owen. You think you've got something like it's good, and protein is like
I could prove it right now.
There it is, and I want this is what I want to talk about. A lot of people create. And there's another guy that I interviewed, David Israel, that created popcorn from prison. So this is all your point of sale, your marketing stuff. And it's called California Ice Protein. I want to talk about, Owen, was this going on in your head, this marketing stuff that you just put up? Because everybody will be able to see this on Spotify and YouTube. Were you talking to people on the outside and saying, oh my God, I've got something that's like bigger than big. We got to figure out how to market and get this into everywhere on the outside. Like, were you putting the business plan in play there? Because I know where you are now, and I've seen your setup and everything that you've got going on, and all these refrigerators that were delivered, like 50 freezers. How did you time this thing out?
I've been manifesting it, man. I'm not going to lie. As soon as I got to the halfway house, I said, okay, I need to figure out if I can do a protein ice cream in the U.S. I just started.
How many months ago was that?
I got out 16 months ago.
Okay.
And I've been in the Federal Bureau of Prison halfway house, and I just started going to different ice cream shops and figuring out recipes and putting Greek yogurt with ice cream mix and just collaborating with different manufacturers, and I finally found a manufacturer that believed in my story. I showed him the book, and I told him my comeback idea, and I showed him the content in prison. He says, man, I can't say no to you. He says, right. This is a hell of a story, and I want to be part of it. And, I'm blessed to have found him. And
how did you find him, Owen? What was the connection with him? Was it just you trying out ice cream somewhere, and
I just started cold calling these ice cream manufacturers, and no one wanted to take it. They all needed big MLQs, and I didn't have two nickels to rub together.
Right.
You got to believe in me, man. I said I've paid back the cartel $4 million. You don't have to worry. I'm going to make sure anything I do with you is going to be legitimate. And that was my sales pitch. I said, listen, I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I said I have a story that's better than any Dave's Killer Bread story. I said I made this in my 6x8 cell. I said everyone loves a comeback. I said if you want to be part of this comeback, I said just believe in me. And this guy believed in me. And literally for the last year, we've been formulating my mix with the healthy treats that I put in it, the bananas and the peanut butters and the fresh strawberries and just adding the perfect amount of protein and making sure it's not chalky like a protein bar. Yeah. And it's just that ice cream taste. Like I tell people, it's the best thing you could ever have as far as if you want those ice cream cravings, but you want to be healthy about it. And it's all on a stick. So it's not like you have to eat a pint.
No, and the great thing about it is, Owen, I mean, timing is everything. Protein is the biggest thing out there right now. I mean, people talk about cottage cheese and everything else that's going on. You've got something that looks good, that tastes good. It's got a great story. It's like art, people pay all this money for art because of the story. You've got a story that connects all the dots, and now you're coming out and I know you get out the 26, which will be a huge weight off you. I mean, but like, what's your plan on this ice protein? That's California ice protein from the California Kid.
I just feel the branding is, the California Kid is my story. And then why not start the brand California Ice Protein? Because it started as an ice protein in federal prison.
Right.
And my idea is that day I get out was the day I launched my company. I've put the taste testers out there. I've had the fitness expo where I had 100 people in a line trying to taste my product for 2 days straight. I know people believe in the product, and it's not a pity story. It's like, oh, look at this guy got out of prison. It's not. People are saying this is unbelievable. I can't believe it doesn't taste healthy. That's what someone said. It doesn't taste. And when they said it didn't taste healthy, I was like, that's it. That's my tagline.
I like it.
It's exactly what I want. It doesn't taste healthy, so that means it's healthy, but it's ice cream. So I'm just running with it, and I feel like, you know, the momentum from the book and this you know, people are saying this documentary is coming out, the rumor on the street. I feel like people are going to start looking up what's this Owen Hanson about, and they're going to see that kid that was, you know, putting bad things on the streets to now distributing healthy treats.
And I love that. That's a great tagline, and it's not any secret because you can look it up online. You've got a documentary coming out that's going to also be great when you're rolling all this out. Your stuff looks really cool. It's got bright colors. I mean, we can see it on here. You've got the white wall tires that for the ice cream push cart with the chrome. I mean, it's the shit. It looks great. And I know that you'll be able to make it work because entrepreneurship is all about the doing, the taking action, you know, and then figure, you know, they always make a joke about entrepreneurs. They build the plane on the way down after they jump. There's some truth to that, you know. Like I've talked about my story and, you know, you should probably take less and less risk as you get bigger. But when you're blowing, you know, out right away, entrepreneur is all about, he's the guy with the hope, the risk, the want and the action to make it happen. And you're doing all that. And you've got it all kind of connected. I love I've got your book. Anybody who wants to check out your stuff, Owen, you've got a great YouTube channel. Your Instagram's blowing up. So, I mean, you've got it all going. I want to ask you a question just on where you are right now, because you're getting ready to launch again. It's fun stuff, but it's a lot of stress too. What do you think's your biggest takeaway through all this you've been through?
My biggest takeaway is just never give up in life. You know, I was at the most lowest place in life you could be, rather than being dead. Right? It's a 6x8 prison cell, and you've been there, Brad. And you can't get any lower.
No, very humbling.
And to understand that the government's taken every asset I've ever made in my entire life, and to be let out on these streets and not have, like I said, 2 nickels to rub together, and just be, you know, utilizing your contacts and hoping they believe in you and realize that, you know, wow, he is making a comeback. This is his redemption story. And if you have the faith, you can go anywhere in life. And I'm going to prove that to the world. I feel like I've already gotten a quarter of the way there, you know, and I just know once this story is told properly and I get this California Ice Protein, I hope it's that big buyout like Halo Top or, you know, Ghost Dave's Killer Bread.
Yeah, no, and I think Dave's Killer Bread, I think he sold out for like 270 million or more. It could be more than that, but that figure's stuck in my head. And the thing of it is, you know, Owen, is that you're right. When you get knocked down to the lowest point, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Where they've taken away everything, that's off your back. So if you start stepping forward, you know, if you've lost everything, you know what that feels like. But you also know that you built it the first time. And I think that you going out, testing, I mean, because everybody's got something that they think they've got the best idea in the world. And if they could only do this, then they'd be rich. But you went around until you found somebody that believed in you. And then you spent the last few months while you've been in the halfway house to make it all come to life, which I think is so incredibly cool. Really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I actually have a meeting in about 5 minutes with the manufacturer, so that's good. But I just wanted to tell you, you know, keep following the story. It's all about the redemption and the second chance in life, and just keep in mind that there's really no excuses in life. If we can do it from where I'm at right now in a Federal Bureau of Prison halfway house, then anybody should be able to do it.
I love that, because that's the kind of message that needs to be out there. these type of things can happen. If you want to get a hold, follow Owen Hanson at California Kid on the Instagram, YouTube. Are you under Owen Hanson at YouTube?
Yeah, it's all under the official CA Kid. And if people want to buy the book, they can go to the California.
Amazon?
They could go, no, if they want it signed in a personal message from me, they go to thecaliforniakid.com.
Got it. And if anybody's looking for another book, I've got one too, just while you're out there shopping around, Nightmare Success. I want to give a shout out to Homestead Financial Home Mortgage for letting me use this all this podcast equipment in their room here. And if you got anything you want to check out with Brent Cassity, go to brentcassity.com. I spell it wrong. Spell it with a T-Y, not a D-Y. And you've got a cool website. Owen, is it what you just said is your website?
Yeah, the book is easy to remember, thecaliforniakid.com or the californiaiceprotein.com. We got both of them. We're going to be direct to consumer in the next 2 months, and we'll be in 100 stores here within the summertime.
That's going to be cool. And we're going to be talking about it because it happened while you were in the halfway house and while you were in prison, and then the halfway house, you built out the plan. Owen, man, I love it. You are an inspiration to all of us that have gone through the system, and you're making it happen. And it's just, and I want to give another shout out to Matt Boyer for connecting this up so everybody can listen to this story. As I used to say to my people when I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. All the best to you, Owen Hanson. You've got a story, man.
Hey, remember, as a Trojan, we just keep fighting on, brothers.
Keep fighting on. I've heard that. All right. Nightmare Success. In and out.